Well, howdy.
So yeah, but it's gonna be a fun time. It was a fun time since it's post. Anyways,
Thank you to the Fatherhood Foundation.
Yep. So
if you didn't make it to the event, you can still go online and donate some monies.
That's right.
So if you like what we
Human
have
monies.
to say today, if you feel like you walk away with some good nuggets, maybe $1 for every nugget you learn today.
That's right.
Donate
That's
to
right.
the Fatherhood Foundation.
That's right. And then attend next year because there'll be another one.
And put it on the calendar.
Yep. So so today we're going to talk about one of the biggest problems that has been since the beginning of time. Since home inspections have become like a mainstream thing, right? Mm-hmm. Mainstream in the world of real estate because nobody still knows we exist outside of that. But there's friction between inspectors and realtors, right? Mm-hmm. And the reason being because most of the time we are the last and biggest hurdle, speed bump before making it to close, right? This is where the most stress happens. It's where negotiations happen. This is where deals fall apart. Mm-hmm. So everybody kind of holds their breath until after the home inspection. You know, I mean, appraisals problems happen, but that's usually negotiated pretty, I won't say easily, but, you know, achievable. Right. You know, I mean, you still have some lending things and whatnot. So unless the client buys a car right before they close on the house, you know, typically it's the home inspection is the problem. We're the problem. Right. But a lot of this is honestly, from what I've seen, just misinformation and misunderstanding about what we do, why we do, and how we do it. Mm-hmm. Right. As well as what the role of the realtor is, you know, and the responsibilities and how they separate. And one of the things that I always tell people, first off, is we are separate for a reason. I've often been told, well, this isn't our contract, talking about real estate, right? Mm-hmm. Realtors. I'm like, that's cool. We don't use your contract.
Yeah.
Right?
So home inspectors don't abide by it in this area, Central Virginia region. We have the Richmond Association of Realtors, RAR, who creates their own contracts. People can also, any licensed agent in Virginia can also use the VAR, Virginia Association of Realtor contracts. You guys are not held to any standards by any of those associations. No. There is absolutely no affiliation with real estate, realtors, any realtor association. So you guys are an independent, completely independent from all of that.
Yes.
And that seems to be some of the confusion with the real estate agents, is they want you to abide by their purchase agreements and contracts.
Yep.
So we'll go into more detail about that too.
Yeah, and that's the best way to put it, right? So we have our own board through the Department of Professional and Occupational Regulations. We refer as DPOR, separate from the real estate board. You know, so we have our own section in Virginia Code that governs us, that tells us what we can and can't do. And reason why this is coming up now, and it's not just from one particular post, video, incident, or whatever, but it's just something that I've been hearing a lot of lately because for whatever reason, from what I've been told, we're in a season of a lot of buyers backing out of contracts because of the inspection, right? So agents are getting frustrated, and that frustration tends to get pointed towards us.
Right.
But when a comment or a video or a post is made asking questions that we're stating that we're nitpicking and we're writing things up that we shouldn't be writing up because it's obvious, and it shows a full picture it shows that there's just a lack of understanding, right? And the example is a video highlighting that inspectors write up things like cracked driveways is you know, this specific example. And the reason why is simple. The law tells us we have to.
Right.
You know, so while we understand that it may not be something you can really should or could negotiate, that doesn't mean it's not something we aren't required to write up and report on.
Correct.
So, so yeah, that's just one of the things. And then, you know, we had talked about the word legal defect.
Legal defect.
You know, like that means
nuance
nothing
there.
Yeah. Yeah, like that means nothing to us, right? And it's not even a code thing for us, because we don't cite code. We can't cite code. We're not allowed to cite code. And even if we could, it's almost impossible, because that opens up a whole nother box. Because if you've ever looked at any code book for any trade, and you know, pick up the National Electrician's code book and see how thick that is. Right. And then you add the plumbers and everybody else's. Like, it's just impossible. And then keeping up with all the changes, and then what states adopt what, and then what localities adopt what. Like, we just can't, right? So there is no legal defect in our world, you know, but I guess there's a way that fits into your world.
Correct. Our contract defines, so in the CVR MLS, so the Central Virginia Region MLS, RAR's purchase agreement provides a definition of defect for the contract terms. But the word defect outside of this contract, this doesn't carry over to home inspectors. So that's where some of the confusion is. So we're seeing all this chatter and all these the commentary on Facebook and other social media platforms is that they're trying to take our contract definitions and then overlay it to your industry when there is actually no overlap.
Right.
And really the understanding of our contracts is for the agents to manage and for them to be talking to their clients. So, and those are the dots that seem to be, you know, not getting connected right. Properly. And putting too much responsibility on a home inspector for those instances. You guys are going to write up what you're going to write up following your own set of protocol. Where, and as a buyer agent or listing agent, if extra things get put in the report, why are they even worried about it?
Right.
That's the buyer's paying for it. The buyer's hiring you. And if you give a lot of extraneous information to the buyer, then they just have a more robust report, things to follow on, project lists to potentially have for the next decade, right? Most of these items don't have to be taken care of the day they close on the house.
Right.
And I think it's also really great CYA, cover your assets, 100%. For buyers who are buying unseen. The more robust that home inspection report is, the better I feel as the real estate agent, because the home inspector is one more set of eyes, neutral party, telling the buyers exactly, you know, what they're getting into. I know it's not happening quite as often now in 2026 as it was in the first couple of years after the pandemic. We had a lot of people buying from out of state, doing video tours, buying home sight unseen.
When they were doing the remote work from home, became a standard.
Right. Yeah.
And now it's not.
We had a huge influx of people moving to the Richmond area from elsewhere. And so there were a whole lot of video tours happening. If you didn't find the home in your first, you know, weekend outing when you came here in person, and then you continue the search when you go back to whatever state. And so that's where I'm never offended by there being too much information in a report. So that's for the agent to manage.
Right.
And that's where this chatter is just completely losing, you know, that nuance or maybe is confused on who's responsible for what.
Right. And again, like we talk about, you can't, in theory, can't ask or not supposed to ask for things that are old, right? If they're still working. But again, we put things in the report because it just paints a big picture of the house.
Right.
So when you have a 25, 30, 35-year-old house and everything's original, roof, HVAC, water heater, everything, right? Dishwasher, right? Stove, everything is original to the house. You know, these houses that are in this $400,000 to $600,000, $700,000 price range, plus or minus, you know, we put that in there because we're just letting the client know, like, hey, this is this isn't a right now problem, but it's a you problem, right? And it's coming. And they're looking at the report like, man, this is $50,000 worth of stuff. And in their mind, I'm going to close on Monday and the roof's going to leak on Tuesday and the HVAC's going to go out on Wednesday, right? So even though, I know there's frustration when that stuff gets put in there, but I don't feel like we would be doing our clients any services if we neglected to tell them like, hey, be prepared.
Exactly.
And if that causes them to back out because the agreement negotiations can't be met, then it causes them to back out. But I'd rather them back out than on a month later we're getting phone calls saying, hey, we got a $20,000 roof we got to replace, and nobody told us.
Yeah. Well, so we can dig a little further into that, because if everything's original to the house, your home inspection should not be the first time the buyer is learning this, right?
Right.
Like, that's something that I'm talking about in the buyer consultation itself. So this is when we're either doing it virtual, online, or in person at the office. But this is not while we're walking through homes, right? When we're doing a buyer consultation and I'm going through the contract's definition of defect, it says right here that the defect shall exclude antiquated systems or grandfathered components, right? So antiquated systems, that is where the home may have the original boiler from 1970.
Yeah.
That's antiquated. But if it's working today, the home inspector may come in and say, hey, it's working.
That's right.
But when something does break, you might not be able to find a part for this. So just want you to be aware, you might not be able to repair it. You might be looking at full replacement, and that's going to be expensive. The buyer shouldn't be surprised by that.
Yeah.
Right? As a buyer agent, I'm explaining that in the buyer consult. Like, look, let's talk about what antiquated systems are. The age of the roof, the age of the HVAC or boiler. It doesn't matter if it's the end of its useful life if there's not a current problem today.
Right.
So if it's a 25-year-old home and a 25-year-old life or roof with 25-year shingles, even 30-year shingles, because they call it 30-year, but they might need to be replaced at age 25, 26, right?
Yeah.
If there's no current leaks or active issues, there's nothing you can do about that old roof. Right. Now, if there's some nail pops, if there's flashing around the boot vents or flashing around the chimney that need to be repaired, you can ask for those repairs. Now, the conversations that we've had with our home inspectors in the past is they've educated us. Like, we knew going in, okay, this is a 25-year house. The seller could not tell us if the roof had been replaced or not. Maybe they weren't the only owners. Like, they have no idea, was it replaced at some point? Was it not? Okay, well, if the sellers can't tell us what year is replaced, we should assume that it's near the end of useful life or original, right? So that's what I always coach my buyers. If they can't tell us what year any of these items were replaced, hot water heater, HVAC boiler, roofing, assume that it's old and assume that you have to replace it in the first 0 to 5 years that you own the home. And if that is going to be a deal breaker for you, you need to decide that now, and we shouldn't look at those houses. Yeah. If it's something that truly cannot be afforded, we need to look at homes then that have made those replacements in the last 5 or 10 years, right? So that should be talked about well in advance.
Should be.
And then home inspectors just, adding additional information and possibly, sometimes there's like some loose advice that gets thrown in there, right?
Yeah.
So I've had roofs where there are maybe $1,200 worth of repairs and it's a $6,000 roof. And the home inspector will explain to us, like, look, here are the technical issues today. Here are the deficiencies or defects that are wrong today. However, I don't recommend spending $1,200 on these repairs when you can replace the whole thing for $6,000.
Yes.
Because you can see how the granules are breaking apart. These shingles are at the end of its useful life. But technically, you can't ask for a roof replacement per the definition in our contracts, right? So that's where the home inspectors have helpful conversations with us when they understand what we can and can't ask for, right? So being old is not a defect, but if there's actual issues with the roof, you can ask for those repairs. But then it might not make sense to ask for the repairs. You may say, hey, actually just give us the $1,200 credit because we're going to go ahead and replace it as soon as we move in. So that's the strategy conversation you have with your agent.
Yeah.
But the agent needs to know the contracts and the definition of defects well enough to ask good follow-up questions with their home inspector and then educate their buyers. And their buyers shouldn't be surprised by this. Yeah. That's why you should have buyer consultations. And this is why buyers should demand to have a meeting with their agents before they run around and start looking at homes.
Yeah, for sure. And to take that a step further, to better prepare the client, what do agents typically put in the listings? All the sunshine and rainbows. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Because nobody wants to see the negative. Yeah. Versus just being honest, because it's so many times I've showed up and like none of these conversations have happened. And it's like, well, how old is the HVAC? Well, 20 years old. And it's like the look on everybody's face. It's like, oh, that's news. Nobody knew that, So yeah, be honest in the listings. Like I know we all just want to highlight the positives, but again,
yes and no, right? So the listing agent's job is to sell that property and to make it feel as valuable as possible. So as a listing agent, we are going to focus on all of the positive things. Yeah. We have a pretty robust frequently asked questions document. And so we usually do list all the big things and we'll just say unknown if we don't know. Most of the listings out there do not have an incredibly detailed frequently asked questions document. What they might do is only list the things that have been replaced recently because that adds value, right? So that's good marketing. That adds value. You're selling a product there. Yeah. As a buyer agent, number one, you can ask more questions. Number two, if they're not highlighting it, it's a pretty good assumption that it's old. Right? If it was replaced in the last 5 years, those sellers should know it. Yeah. And the listing agent should have made note of it. And that's a huge marketing piece. Yeah. So if they completely missed it, well, one, they're just not marketing the home very well, which could be a bonus for you. But I like going in thinking everything is at the end of its life and then getting pleasantly surprised when the home inspector says, roof looks great. It looks like it's about 10 years old, right? Or they see a date on something and they're able to confirm for us like, hey, this is cool. Like, and on our end, we're like, oh, the listing agent did not advertise that, even though it's a really positive thing. And maybe they didn't know. Sure. And so those are all positive things positive surprises. Yeah. Like I want good surprises. I don't want bad ones.
And don't we all? And I get it. I guess you could put stuff like that in agent only comments if you wanted to, but I also understand like you're trying to get people in the house at the end of the day. So you're hoping that maybe they can overlook all that other stuff because they can see the other positive when they physically see the house. Yep. But if you don't have any money, it's hard to look past a $15,000 roof that's coming due. Yep. But I agree. It definitely comes down to setting those expectations and understanding. And another thing that I've learned, if a seller says that, oh, that's 5 years old, it's 8 to 10.
Right. Approximately 5 means a few more.
Yeah. And that's not a them fault. That's just, I lose track of time.
Yeah. Well, a lot of times I'm writing down exactly what my seller just told me.
Yes.
And so if they've got receipts and they say, we just replaced the roof in July 2026, I'm like, cool, I'm writing down July 2026, right? If they're like, oh, it was about 2 years ago, then I'm putting approximately 2 years old or approximately 2024, right? It's when we put approximate, that's because someone else just told us something that's approximate.
Yeah. And another thing that was discussing earlier was, I think a lot of this could fall on the fact that when we went through COVID and the influx of agents and the waiving of everything.
Oh, right.
And there was no negotiations. And here we are. I don't even know how many years. I don't even know when COVID ended, really. How many years it's been. But I feel like that we still have agents that haven't truly negotiated or learned how to negotiate. Yes. So that's a whole thing too, So it's instead of, oh, well, understanding why we put stuff in there, it's just, well, they just nitpick and made it hard, and now my deal fell apart because my buyers freaked out.
Right.
Versus, I need to be better at my job.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying the inspection industry is a dumpster fire. Right. Yeah. There's a lot of bad home inspectors, but we're just talking about in the perfect world, the deficiencies between what happens from we hit send to the deal falls apart. Right?
Absolutely. And there's two trends that we see happening too. So you have the agents who got into the business in 2020, 2021, 2022, and part of the way through 2023, everything was getting waived. And so they've had a couple of years, and 2 years, for 2 years their sales were easy, and there was still a lot of homes that were selling, and then the inventory has gotten smaller and smaller. And yet, because of the interest rates going up and the prices going up, the sales did start to slow a little bit, and the inventory is starting to go up a little bit, and not every zip code now has everything waived. So there's a little more movement. Home inspections aren't always completely waived. Now you actually have to go through the whole inspection process, and you're writing up addendums, and not all these agents have a clear understanding of what the defect is per the contract. Again, the home inspection report can have a whole lot of detail, and the home inspector has zero requirement to write anything towards our report, other than I'll do the one caveat. We do want to see estimated cost to cure. We've talked about that before. For the Richmond Association,
that's right.
The Central Virginia Richmond Association, this little section, our contracts do say, as a buyer agent, we are required to submit the full inspection report, an addendum where we're asking for repairs or a credit, and it has to include estimated cost to cure. That has to be done by our deadline. So as a buyer agent, I will only work with home inspectors who will put a cost to cure on every single item that we could possibly be negotiating. Because if I am in a competitive offer situation and I have to get the inspections done in 7 days or 10 days or even 14, I don't necessarily have time to get 5 specialists in after the home inspection, but before my addendum and report are due. So I have to at least have some estimate. It could be estimate $0 to $5,000. I don't care what it says, but it has to check that box off for our requirements per our contract. Yeah. So that's my one caveat where we say, hey, we are going to request and coach our home inspectors to provide this if they are going to be getting all my referrals and recommendations, right, to work with my buyers, because I need to be able to hit the deadlines and meet my fiduciary duty for my buyers and be able to buy us more time.
Yeah.
Right.
And the cost estimates is like a perfect example, because back when I was a member of a local real estate Facebook group before I got kicked out for not paying monthly dues, refusing to do so. Someone asked that question. They said, well, they didn't ask the question. They said, hey, just had a home inspection done, got the report back, no cost estimates. Mm-hmm. What do I do? Right? Mm-hmm. Cool. And of course, the first one was they an out of the area home inspector? Because sometimes if it's out of area, they're like, no, it's actually a Richmond home inspector. And then someone put, well, it's in our contract, they have to do it. No. And that goes back to the separation, right? Like, no, that's a you problem. Your contract doesn't say the inspector's required.
Right.
You have the contract. I'm pretty sure it says the buyer is responsible for cost secure estimates, right?
Exactly.
Somehow that fell to us, which is another therapy session for another day. But like I said, nowhere can you force an inspector to do it, because, again, even if it said the home inspector is required in your contract,
right?
Cool.
Yeah. It doesn't say that anywhere.
Report me.
Right.
Who you reporting me to?
Yeah.
Right? Because the state law says we're not required to do it for home inspectors.
Correct.
For the record, we do it.
Yes. Yes. Exactly.
But
that's
it's
the
just
nuance,
the point.
and
It's
that's
the point
where,
being made. Like, understand your contract and understand the separation of duties and responsibilities between the two, and that they may clash. Right? Like the word defect. My word, if I write up a defect, may not meet your definition in the contract of a defect. So, yeah, I get it. It muddies the water, and there's some clashing there. But it's also the same thing that I've told a lot of people in a lot of classes is when you look at everybody involved in a real estate deal, that's real estate adjacent, meaning home inspectors, termite people, title, settlement, not the plumber fixing the plumbing or the roofer fixing the roof, but the actual real estate adjacent industries. And you look at who makes what off that one singular deal, typically, unless the agent, is doing it for zero commission for whatever reason, the agent makes the most money out of everybody. And the reason being is because I only have to deal with home inspection problems.
Yeah.
Termite only has to deal with termite problems. You got to deal with all the problems.
Yes.
And so therefore you're making your money because you're having to explain that and clear those waters to like, yeah, I know what the inspector said, but I'm telling you, this is what we can ask for. Right. So I think there's also that sense of, it's just like, when I was in the fire department and I equated to that, I said the battalion chief made the most money. In theory, right? In theory. But if you go to a working fire, a house that's on fire, the battalion chief makes the most money and they sit in their car. And they sit in their car, but they're directing everybody else to do everything. Everybody else has their own specific jobs. Right? It's no different here. The agent's the one that's sitting there directing everything.
Yep.
And they make the most money because I don't, for what we make on an inspection, you yell at me all you want, I don't really care. Right? I'm not changing how I do things.
Yeah. And that's why that nuance matters. And that's where the realtors have to understand the difference in those things, because if they don't, they're putting their buyers at risk.
Yeah.
And so you should know ahead of time what the reports look like from a home inspector. You should never hire a home inspector having never seen a report from them.
Yeah. It's either on the website or you can ask for one.
I'll ask for one, right? Yep. And so you shouldn't be surprised by this, right? Yeah. Like, you shouldn't be surprised that a roof is old, and you shouldn't be surprised if a home inspector does business a certain way. You should have already had a conversation with the home inspector long before you hired them. Yeah. And that's the nuance of a home inspector does not have to, by any law, standards, whatever, right? Now, a home inspector who's going to work with me has to.
Right.
And there's that understanding, and there's that conversation ahead of time, right? 100%. So I had that conversation with them. Here are my expectations. Here are the 3 things that I always want to make sure happen. And this is how we stay in business together, right? But you can't make those demands after the fact if it's not that home inspector's way of doing business, and if that home inspector doesn't care about continuing to do business with you. So that's where, if an agent doesn't truly understand who's responsible for what and how to preemptively, go through those details, that's where they can be creating huge problems and not really meeting their fiduciary duty for their buyer. And so that's something where when a buyer comes to me and says, I don't want to use your recommendation, I want to use this home inspector that my uncle recommended, or my cousin or my neighbor who bought one home in the last 20 years, has this person, or this home inspector goes to my church, or whatever their connection is. When they say, oh, I know someone, I'm going to bring them in. That's where I will have that quick conversation with them and say, hey, there's a couple things. Can you please ask for an example of their report?
Yeah.
Here are the things that I need to make sure are in that report so that I can meet all the requirements of the contract within this deadline. Yeah. And you are free to use whoever you want. We just need to make sure X, Y, Z are covered. And then, cool, that might be a home inspector I've never worked with before, and I'm okay with that. But as a real estate agent, you need to know enough.
Right.
To educate your buyer, to guide your buyer and say, hey, this is why we don't just use anyone.
Yeah.
We need to make sure these things are covered. Otherwise, you may not be able to meet your deadline.
100%. And one of the things, like, and you just brought up is does the inspector check your boxes? Not in what they write up or anything like that, but like I said, the concept, stuff like that. And I've had that conversation before where when you're looking, we're not for everybody. Cool. If you're not happy how we do things and there's somebody else that you mess with is better, cool. As long as it's a quality home inspection, because there's a lot of good companies out there. Don't go to another home. Don't go because, when they write too much stuff up and we'll go find another company. And the example that I use is we might make some people mad, but I don't write up missing smoke detectors as a safety issue. I do as a maintenance item.
Right.
I did 20 years eating smoke and running to burning buildings. I know all about smoke detectors save lives.
Right.
But I also believe if you go to Home Depot for $5 and stick it to your ceiling yourself, it doesn't need to be a safe time. But there's a lot of home inspectors that do. Are they wrong? No. Because what we do is subjective, right? We do have the laws that require us to inspect and report on defects. Right. Certain things. Driveways, right? Yeah. Bathrooms, roofs, foundations, attics, all the things. But what it does not tell us is what a defect is. So that is born through experience, preference, training, all the things. So if you're like, man, I really wish it, like, because we've had agents do this. Can you take this one and make it a defect? Can you take this one, make it maintenance? Like, look, you need to find a home inspector that you like their language. You like what they're you don't have a problem with what we're putting in the report, but you may have a problem with how we're categorizing it. Right. Cool, right? So maybe we're not for you for that, and you need to go find somebody who does. I listened to a podcast earlier this week out of Minnesota, Structure Talk, the company Structure Tech. It's a home inspection company. The owner's well-known, super smart guy. And he had a 11-month warranty inspection come up. And it was a client/friend. And they were hearing some chatter, background noise, right? Same stuff that we're talking about. And he's like, you know what I'm going to do? He asked his friend, he says, hey, schedule a home inspection. I'm not going to tell my inspector I'm doing this or that you're doing this. I want you to contact one of the competitors. And I just want to compare. I just want to see, right? Yeah. And so they got, the blind inspection test. Yep. The other company wrote up 3 things: nail pops, settlement cracks, and dirty filters. That's it. His inspector, who again he didn't tell that they were doing, wrote up actual deficiencies, significant deficiencies. And the co-host said something that really made a lot of sense. She says people are training inspectors not to find a defect. The inspector is finding what is obvious. And I said, that's a great way of putting it. Yeah. So I say all that to say, like I said, if you don't like how we write it up, cool, because there's 1,000 ways to write up a missing smoke detector. Yeah. But don't go to the company that's just finding the obvious, right? Yeah. Still find a company that knows, that understands how to find the defect. Yeah. So if you're looking at a water heater, it's like, oh, TPR valve missing, got it, nailed it. Okay, well, what about the other 7 things that's a little more complicated to find, right? Is the point. So I think there's a lot of that as well. But like I said, we're not for everybody. That's cool. The next company's not for everybody. That's why there's multiple companies, right? Yeah. So it's okay to be like, well, they don't really like the language that I like. And I tell, when I do VHDA classes for Virginia home buying, I tell them the same thing. I said, ask for a home inspection report. We can take any inspection that we've ever done, click a button, and it becomes a sample report because it washes away all the personal information. Yeah. I said, if you can't read and understand my report is useless to you. Right. So there's no point in hiring a home inspection company, even if they're the best one in the entire world, in the whole universe, the best, top flight security of the world, Craig. But if you can't understand, that was a movie reference, Courtney, back before you were born.
What movie?
Friday.
Friday.
Yep.
Friday the 13th?
Nope.
No. We should put Friday on your watch list.
Look, her watch list is so long. So long. It includes Roadhouse, Top Gun.
No. I've seen.
No, you didn't. You saw the new ones. They don't count. They don't count. Anyways, Courtney's trying to derail us. But if you can't, as a client, if the report doesn't make sense to you, then it's useless, right? Yeah. And that's how you get in trouble later on because it's like, well, you missed all the stuff. And then you call the home inspector, well, actually, it's on page 9. You know what I mean? So,
right.
So again, that's just a lot more work, I think, than some people are putting into this process, or a lot more thought anyways.
And that is, you bring up such a big thing that we see in this industry. And the fact that people say it out loud is unbelievable, because many agents have said that out loud. They don't like certain home inspectors because those inspectors bring up too many things.
Yes.
There's too many things in the report. They're too detailed. My favorite home inspector until he retired, this was well before you were in the business, Sidney.
That's right.
Who has long retired. They used to call him the deal killer. And he was my favorite. Yeah. He was my go-to, right? And I still have clients who ask about him. He was, and I think he had been a builder formerly. And so he knew a lot of information and provided a lot of detail. He did things that, because at that time you didn't have to be licensed. Yeah. So he didn't have to follow anyone's rules. That's right. And so he would actually get really specific and say, not only is this a defect, but here's the proper way to fix it. Because, we're working with a ton of like first time buyers. Yep. And some of the things that would happen is a seller would go just like throw tar on a bitumen roof and call it a day. And so we would get really specific in our repair addendum saying, hey, here's this defect in the roof, and then here's how it needs to be repaired. So when they sign that addendum, we're also agreeing to, we all agree that the proper way to repair this, because technically the contract does say it's supposed to be done according to the best practices of the trade. Sure. Right? But if they go and do it wrong, then we're delaying closing. Yep. We're fighting over it. We're trying to get the person back out, and now you have to undo what they've done. It's just a nightmare. So I just loved being so specific in my addendum, in the addenda with the repair request, so that we could avoid all of that. Yeah. But I digress. The point is that people called him a deal killer, and people refused to use him. And then I've just heard that about home inspectors in general. Yeah. Oh, I don't like that guy. He's an alarmist, or there's too much detail. Well, I understand occasionally you might have a personality that the way they present things, it does sound like they're making a mountain out of a molehill. Sure. With most inspectors, if they're detailed, they're detailed. And it's my job to manage the buyer's sense of overwhelm, emotions, and all of that. So I don't know that I have come across a home inspector that I think is overwhelming or does too much. So when I hear agents saying that, I'm just like, oh my God, do your buyers know this about you? I said, and that might be a smart thing for buyers to ask, right? Ask their buyer agents, how did you pick this inspector? Yeah. Like, what's important to you about a home inspector? Make that agent answer.
I told somebody earlier today, I was like, we have 2,000 Google reviews or whatever it is. Like, not a single one of them says, I wish the report was shorter. I wish they found less, right? Right. But that is such a good point, because man, my favorite, and I've been told this, hey, like you write up too much stuff. 6 months later, hey, buying a house for me. Got any availability? Weird, awkward, okay. Yeah. But there's a running joke in the industry that says this is the only industry that the better you get at it, the less business you get.
It's so weird.
It
So
is.
funny.
It
Yeah.
is. And when when you're trying to navigate all this stuff, like I said, we're trying to appease everybody while still just trying to do our job. But I've been telling people lately, I said, and this isn't a blanket statement, there's most agents are really good, right? And they care. But like you said, there have been some agents that say that out loud. And it's like, if I provided a report for an agent's personal home the way they want me to provide for their buyer,
Yeah.
they would be so mad. So mad after they moved in.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
But the other issue to all of this is we see, and again, this.
And I think there's a key point here. So if agents are choosing a home inspector because it makes the deal easier, or if they're choosing a home inspector, because there's less detail, and so there's less for their buyers to freak out about, there's less chance that a deal falls through. If that's their decision-making factor, number one, that's not withholding their fiduciary duty for their buyer.
Right.
Number two, it's because they lack skills.
Yeah.
They need to work on their effective communication, how to properly set expectations with their buyers. And most things that are big like this need to be said multiple times, which is why I like to do a detailed buyer intake. And then I do a detailed buyer consultation. And then there's additional things that I repeat when we're looking at the homes. And then there's things I repeat when we're talking about making an offer on a home. And then I have a speech when I meet them for the home inspection before the home inspector does their thing, right? Yeah. So there's like at least 5 different opportunities there to bring up the major points. Yeah. So if someone is saying, oh my gosh, I don't like this amount of detail, I want to go hire this home inspector who doesn't do as much, that's just, oh my gosh. There are skills that they need to work on.
Yeah. And
some of it is they're trying to push the easy button because they don't know how to do that. Yeah. And that's where if they don't know how to do it, then they should be showing up to my classes. Everyone is welcome to trainings at Keller Williams Realty. We have an open door policy with most of our trainings. And so, sign up, come in the door. If your office isn't having the discussions and isn't providing those trainings, that's why you don't know what to do. But it is actually not that difficult.
Right. Right. And one of the things is, I don't know if I said it earlier in the podcast, but like one of the comments that I saw was, how do we get home inspectors to write what we want them to write, essentially? I mean, that was the gist of it. And going back to fiduciary responsibilities, I'm not an attorney, but I feel like you're kind of blurring the lines there, right? Of steering the inspector and not acting in the best interest of your client. Right. Versus just letting the home inspector do what they're supposed to be doing, right? Because at the end of the day, in good faith, can you say, hey, as a if you're a home inspector let that happen, then you got problems, right? You should never let an agent dictate how you write a report or what you find or what you put in the report, unless it's just completely absurd and ridiculous. Like, there's a trampoline out there. Can you put that in the report? No, we don't do that. Right. But yeah, once you start trying to put your fingers in the report, one, it's a legal document, and that's a big thing that a lot of people don't understand. Because in real estate, so many people are afraid to actually go through with litigation, so contracts become useless. But it is a legal document. It's the only thing that I have to say that I saw what I saw and I told you about it, Yep. And it keeps me out of trouble. And I got an expensive daughter at home, right? Who plays softball, really expensive. So I would like to keep working. But it all comes down to, like I said, not hitting that easy button. You have to understand how all of this works. And yeah, it sucks. But you know what makes a good firefighter? Fighting fires. Not sitting around a station watching TV. Right. It's the experience, right? And it's the same thing with real estate. I get it. Some of this is going to make your job hard, but it's going to make you better at it. Yep. And it's going to become easier the next time. But one more thing to talk about before we wrap up, so we don't forget. But to take it a step further for new construction builds, like we were talking before we started, is, we were talking about layouts in the ground and drainage ditches and swales and all that stuff and how they're placed. A lot of people, and it's happened more than once on an inspection for me, where they're looking at the yard at the final walkthrough and something doesn't make them happy, right? Whether it's the grading, whether it's now they have the big green cable box in the front or whatever for the whole neighborhood. Yeah, that's a fun one. Is that always going to be there? Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Or whatever. And you brought up a good point of, are you asking these questions for, again, as an agent, because these are why clients are depending on you? Are you asking the right questions, or are you just picking out the features of the house?
Right.
Right. Because once it's done, it's done. And there's only so much you can do to a lot.
Right.
Right. Because it's the earth. And there's only so much money the builder's going to put in to the lot itself, other than prepping the site for the actual house.
Right.
So what do you recommend agents to do when now we're going into new construction and their responsibilities to their client outside of the home inspection?
So oftentimes there's a site map, and that's where there should be a whole. So when the buyers are driving around looking for the lot, they either like what it's backed up to, or sometimes only certain lots can fit their floor plans. They might not have a ton of options.
Right.
But when they are narrowing down and they're choosing that lot, you should be walking that lot probably with the construction manager. I mean, maybe the site agent will know all of it. And whatever questions the site agent can't answer, it's making sure it's going to the people who can. And then these things should also be put in writing, or there should be drawings or renderings of it, right? So if you want to know what easements are on my lot.
Yes.
So can a big, ugly green electrical cover thingy, go on, towards the cul-de-sac, like for the whole, you should know that.
Right.
Now, the site agent might not know that's exactly where it's going.
Sure.
If they haven't broken ground on any of those homes there. But that's why you ask the questions. Where are their easements? Where does the lot stop and start? So where does the builder still own land? So they can put whatever they want on there.
Yep.
How is the water flow going to be working in this neighborhood? If it hasn't been built out yet, then where are they going to put trenches, or how do you deal with the groundswell? How do you deal with the water coming off the road? And is your lot higher or lower than the one, houses around you? How are you going to make sure water is not coming from your neighbor's lot? So those are the things that the construction manager, sometimes site agent, should be able to walk you through when you're on the lot. If they truly haven't broken ground on any of the lots around there, they might not be able to answer to a high level that early on, but that can be part of the conversations as you get a little further into the construction.
Right.
But you should still be able to have some sort of like, here's what we're thinking, or here's the current plan, but it's not set in stone yet. The point is, are you even asking?
Right.
And this should be part of your checklist for new construction. What are all those things that could be surprises? Make them not surprises. And so that's also where you go, if part of a neighborhood has already been built up, you drive through those other parts and you see visibly what can you see when a neighborhood is finished, right? Like, what have they done on other streets, on other cul-de-sacs? And then when you see the big green things, it's like, ooh, how do they decide where that goes? Part of it is really observing the finished product and making sure, if it's a builder that's building other places, then go look at one of the other neighborhoods they finished, right? And look at those details and look at what you like and don't like about different lots and placements. And then that kind of gives you your checklist.
Yeah, there's a great point. I wanted to bring that up because I'd forget to talk about that in 2 weeks when we do this again. But it's such, I've never thought about that, right? Like, when you're picking out the lot, like, what are you actually looking at? And I say this all the time in classes that we do when it comes to showings for resales and whatnot, or even new construction is, your job as the agent. I'm not trying to tell you what your job is, but I feel like it's part of it is not just to go in there and see where the couch goes. You should be looking, like we were talking about earlier, like, are you getting the information? So there's less surprises at the inspection. Same thing with new construction. Are you getting this information? Because I don't know how many times we've been at the final and like they're asking questions like the big green box out front. Like it's happened. Right. So like, what is that? Are they going to move it? No.
No.
Can I ask for that? I suggest you go talk to your agent. This is uncomfortable for me. I mean, you can ask whatever you want. I can tell you what they're going to say. Right. So it just comes back to just be prepared. Like do your homework. I don't want to be that guy that says do what you're getting paid to do, because that also applies to home inspectors and the home inspector that finds some nail pops and some settlement cracks in a dirty filter. Like, right. Do what you get paid to do, right? But I also think one of the biggest barriers to these conversations that we're having, like right now, so many inspectors, title companies, lenders, termite companies, they're afraid to say anything because where do we get all of our business from? So we don't want to, they don't want to come off as like, well, I'm going to push back. Right. And now they're going to be mad at me and they're never going to use me again. Right. Well, I'm never going to get referred. But like I say, it's just getting to the point, and maybe it's just the season we're in. Again, more contracts are falling out, at least from the home inspection side, that we're hearing and getting a lot of unnecessary noise and blame for things. Right. And it's all from one, communication, which we've talked about how communication is a key element in a lot of problems, or the lack of communication. And it's just a lack of just general understanding and willingness to have an open dialogue versus just where you're just being nitpicky. Yeah. Well, how about we talk about why, instead of just blaming me. So yeah, I think a lot of people are just afraid to say anything, especially on social media, because now, there's 40 agents going to see that and they're going to be mad at me, right? Because it is. I mean, 80% of our business probably comes from agent referral, right? And until that changes, there's just a lot of hesitancy in general. People just don't like confrontation anyways. Yeah. But I'm getting older, so I don't really care anymore.
Hilarious. But yeah, I think as a buyer agent, if I have a home inspector and a report that's not very detailed and a buyer immediately starts finding more and more and more and more after they moved in, I look awful as a real estate agent. Yes. So I want my home inspector to be as detailed as possible. And I still warn a buyer that they're not going to find everything, a couple hours in a house. So yes. You don't have the luxury of living in a home for days and weeks and being able to hear all the things and moving things around, yes. Et cetera. So to look better as a buyer agent, I want a really detailed home inspector. And there's a lot of coaching that we can do with our buyers and setting expectations that help prevent deals from falling through. And so part of where I'm coaching my buyers from the beginning is that, look, any home inspection report could easily have $3,000 to $5,000 worth of defects or deficiencies or flaws, whatever word your agents want you to use. Yeah. They can have $3,000 to $5,000 worth of flaws identified, even on brand new construction. Yeah. So expect that. 100%. If you have less than $5,000, oh my gosh, bonus! This house is in amazing shape. Yep. When we get to 5 or 10 or 15, that usually indicates that there's at least one big whopper. Mm-hmm. But we can, and in an older home, like in the city, I sell so much property, where the homes are built in the early 1900s. Yeah. We can easily have $10,000 to $15,000, all just little items adding up.
It's all the deferred maintenance
even one
stuff.
big whopper thing, right? It's tuck pointing on the bricks here. It's caulking there. It's loose thing there. So all of that is normal and common. If a buyer knows that that is normal and common going into a home inspection, it's not as overwhelming.
Right.
If you show them a sample report that's 42 pages long and then they get a report from you that's 45, they're like, oh,
Yeah.
that's normal and common, right? So there's so much that we can do as buyer agents to let them know what is normal, set their expectations. And the biggest thing that we're worried about going into it is, are these problems solvable? Where I'm going to be finding every way possible to get you out of a contract is if the home inspector finds defects that really the only way to fix it is to tear down the house and rebuild it. Which is not even a joke, because there was a house down in Petersburg that was like that. And my home inspector looked at us and he said, if you were my daughter, this is a female buyer, right? And he's like, if you were my daughter, I would not allow you to buy this house, right?
Yeah.
And that's always kind of like my, that gut check there. But that's extremely rare, right? I've had that happen once in 21 years where a home inspector looked at us square in the face and was like, don't buy this home. It should be torn down. And there was enough defects in there that we were contractually, there were plenty of ways for us to get out, per the contract. But that's the coaching to the buyer. Can the problems be solved?
Right.
And that's also where we say, hey, are we going to ask for a repair or a credit? If something's pretty straightforward, totally fine. Just get a credit. If something's like, okay, well, there's this problem happening here, but it's a 1916 home with original plumbing. So changing out a faucet is it's not a simple issue, because what the heck is inside that wall? Right. And do those parts exist or whatever else, right? So when you get into the older homes, that's where I'm also coaching my buyers. Is like, okay, the thing that the inspector can see is a $150, faucet. But what we don't know is what's in that wall. And is this going to turn into a $2,000 repair?
Right.
So if this is make or break for you, we need to ask for a repair, not for a credit, because this is opening a can of worms. And I just want you to be aware of that. And again, they can decide whatever they want to decide. They can decide to waive it all. They can decide that they're not going to ask for a repair. They can get the minimal amount, dollar amount for the credit, as long as they know. Here's best case scenario. Here's worst case scenario. Here's all my expertise, that comes with dealing with these old homes. And so, and water issues are the other thing too, right? Okay, well, here's the first repair we can make that we think will stop the water, but we don't know until the next big rain. And so there could be a second and a third and a fourth repair that are needed. And so
there's my favorite ones is when there's a water issue and they fixed it. Like, is it going to happen again? Like, I don't know. Like, it hasn't rained. Like, I don't know. Maybe.
We won't know for months.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right.
And then Richmond has these crazy freak storms where all of a sudden everybody has a leak.
Yes.
But then I have contractors come out. No one can find the leak.
Yeah.
Because those crazy storms where we have sideways rain and there's so much so fast, the water builds up wherever it's building up, and the sideways, the wind and everything else, it finds entry that no one else can replicate when they come back. Like you can spray it with a hose and it's not getting in the house, right?
Yeah.
So that those are some tough things, and it's nobody's fault. It's not your home inspector. It's not your buyer agent's fault. It is Mother Nature being a bear.
Hashtag home ownership.
Yes.
That's whose fault it is.
Those are the rare
I think it was a good conversation. I think we bored Courtney enough. So she's still awake.
We could do round two. If people have follow-up questions when they listen to this.
100%.
We could read the definitions from the contract.
We could.
And then we can go into
I definitely think this needs to be additional conversations for sure, and answer questions.
Love it. Goodbye.
Goodbye.